The galaxy was a vast and ever-expanding empire of unimaginable power. Each alien species ruled their own territories, and the Great Galactic Council decided the fate of all who lived within its borders. Earth, the cradle of humanity, had long been forgotten, its history reduced to mere myth and legend. Humans were seen as weak, their technology primitive, and their armies forgotten. The relics of their ancient civilization were viewed as little more than discarded artifacts. No one took Earth seriously. For centuries, humans had been nothing more than a curiosity, a species that had once flourished but was now relegated to obscurity. But beneath the surface of this seemingly insignificant planet, something incredible was hidden, something that would change the course of the galaxy forever. Deep within the heart of Earth's largest research facility, a group of scientists worked tirelessly on a long-forgotten project. They were searching through layers of ancient ruins and buried knowledge that had been left behind by humanity's ancestors. It was in one of these forgotten archives, deep beneath the ground, that they stumbled upon a relic, an artifact like no other. At first, they thought it was just another piece of old technology, an object that had long lost its purpose. But when they began to examine it, something inside the relic began to hum, a deep and resonant sound that echoed through the facility. The hum slowly grew louder, almost as if the artifact was alive, calling out to those who dared to investigate it. Dr. Samuel Drake, the lead scientist, was the first to notice the strange patterns appearing on the surface of the relic. They were ancient symbols, ones that had been lost to time. He recognized them from old texts that had been handed down from the earliest human civilizations. It was a language that had not been spoken for millennia. As he examined the relic further, his heart began to race. He realized that this was no ordinary artifact. "Get the team." "Now," Dr. Drake commanded, his voice filled with urgency. His colleagues rushed to his side, their curiosity piqued by the sudden change in his tone. The relic, which they had assumed was a simple relic of humanity's past, was much more. It was a warship, a weapon of immense power that had been hidden for centuries, buried deep beneath Earth's surface. This was not just any warship, but one created during the ancient days of human exploration, designed to defend Earth from threats far beyond the stars. The warship had been abandoned after a great battle, its purpose forgotten as humanity turned inward, focusing on building their society. Over time, it had been buried, lost to time, its power and potential forgotten by all. But now, after centuries of dormancy, the relic had been awakened, and its power was once again coming to life. Dr. Drake and his team worked tirelessly to uncover more secrets hidden within the warship's structure. As they deciphered the ancient symbols and unlocked long-forgotten technologies, they uncovered details of its capabilities. The warship was designed to fight the most powerful forces in the galaxy: alien fleets, mighty space empires, and powerful civilizations that had once threatened Earth. But why had it been hidden away? Why had it been abandoned? The team's questions remained unanswered, but one thing was clear: this warship was no ordinary relic. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of taking on the most formidable forces in the galaxy. And now it had been awakened. Earth's ancient warship, the relic that had been mocked and forgotten for centuries, was ready to fight once again. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the alien civilizations that had once looked down on humanity continued to thrive, unaware of the threat that was silently awakening on Earth. The galaxy's most powerful empires had long ridiculed humanity, dismissing them as a relic of the past, a species that had never amounted to anything. They saw no reason to fear a planet like Earth. After all, what could a small, insignificant species like humanity possibly do to threaten the vast, powerful forces of the galaxy? But soon, they would learn the truth. Back on Earth, as the team unlocked more secrets of the warship, they began to realize its true purpose. It was not just a relic of war. It was humanity's last line of defense. The warship had been built to withstand the greatest threats from the stars, and now it was ready to unleash its full power. It was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Drake stood before the massive warship, his heart racing with excitement and fear. He knew that what they had uncovered was not just a piece of history. It was the future of humanity. "The galaxy won't know what hit it," he muttered under his breath, a grim smile forming on his face. The warship's systems powered up, its ancient engines roaring to life. Deep within its core, a surge of energy began to pulse, sending waves of power through the entire facility. The hum grew louder, and the warship began to move. The forgotten relic was no longer a piece of history. It was now a living, breathing weapon, and it was about to change the galaxy forever. As the warship prepared to leave Earth's surface and embark on its journey to the stars, Dr. Drake looked out at the vast expanse of space. He knew that Earth had been dismissed, laughed at, and forgotten for far too long. Now, humanity was about to remind the galaxy of its true power. The galaxy's mocking laughter would soon come to an end. The hum from the ancient warship continued to reverberate through the underground facility, vibrating the very walls. It was a sound that filled the hearts of Dr. Samuel Drake and his team with a mix of dread and exhilaration. They had uncovered something far beyond what they could have imagined. But with every discovery, the stakes grew higher. What had been dormant for centuries was now stirring to life. The relic was no longer a forgotten piece of history. It was a weapon, a beast waiting to be unleashed. The warship's massive frame, hidden beneath layers of rock and steel, was slowly coming into view as the team's machines worked tirelessly to extract it. It was like pulling the sword from the stone, except this was no ancient blade. It was an engine of destruction. The relic's hull, forged from alloys that no human civilization had ever seen, gleamed in the dim light. It looked almost alive, as if it were reacting to their presence, aware of the hands that were awakening it. Dr. Drake's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the warship. He had spent years studying humanity's history, piecing together fragments of forgotten lore. But even he had never encountered anything like this. The technology was beyond anything Earth had ever known, and yet it was unmistakably human in origin. This was no alien device, no foreign weapon. It was humanity's greatest creation. "We need to run a full diagnostic," Dr. Drake instructed, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "If this warship is operational, we need to understand its capabilities. We can't just rush into this blind." His team of engineers and scientists scrambled to comply, running cables and activating terminals to interface with the warship's dormant systems. A series of lights blinked on the ship's hull, responding to their presence. The warship was awakening, piece by piece, as if it were stretching after a long, deep sleep. As the diagnostics ran, the room filled with the sounds of beeping consoles and whirring machinery. The team waited in silence, their collective breath held. They knew that whatever was coming, it was going to be something unlike anything humanity had ever faced before. But they had no choice. The galaxy had mocked them, ridiculed their past, and dismissed their potential. Now, humanity had a weapon to remind them that they were not to be underestimated. Then the terminal screen flashed with a warning message. Dr. Drake leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Warning. Power levels critical. Activation of primary systems imminent." The ground beneath them trembled slightly as the warship's ancient engines began to power up. The hum intensified, becoming a low growl, and the room seemed to vibrate in tune with the ship's awakening. Dr. Drake exchanged a quick look with his team, his expression unreadable. The moment of truth had arrived. "Brace yourselves," he muttered. A massive pulse of energy surged through the facility, and the warship's systems came to life in full force. The lights inside the research center flickered, and the sound of power flowing through the ship's core grew deafening. It was as though the entire facility had been drawn into the warship's energy field. The massive ship's engines hummed with a primal force, and in an instant, the warship's sheer presence overwhelmed the lab. Dr. Drake barely had time to react as a flash of light filled the room. The warship's enormous engines powered up, and the ground shook violently as the colossal ship began to rise, slowly pulling free from the Earth's surface. It was a majestic sight, a thing of power and beauty, as if the ship itself had a soul. But as awe-inspiring as it was, the team couldn't ignore the gut-wrenching feeling of foreboding that settled in their hearts. They were no longer uncovering a relic. They were unleashing something far more dangerous. The warship rose higher and higher, its size dwarfing everything around it. Its hull glowed with a soft blue hue, the result of the ancient energy coursing through its veins. The ship's weapons, dormant for centuries, hummed with deadly energy. Dr. Drake could see the weapons systems activating on the terminals in front of him. The ship was preparing for war, preparing to take flight. Humanity had never seen anything like it, and the galaxy was about to feel its fury. As the warship broke free from the surface, it floated silently into the sky, a testament to humanity's forgotten strength. For a moment, Dr. Drake stood there, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just unleashed. This was not just a ship. This was an ancient force, an unstoppable weapon that had been buried for eons. It was not just a machine. It was the culmination of humanity's strength, creativity, and resolve. And now it was free. The warship soared higher, its trajectory taking it toward the stars. The galaxy, with all of its alien empires and powerful civilizations, would soon learn that Earth was not a forgotten relic. It was a force to be reckoned with. The ship had been created to protect humanity from threats beyond their comprehension, and now it was ready to defend Earth once more. But even as the ship ascended, far beyond the reach of the research facility, Dr. Drake couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He knew that the galaxy would soon discover the warship's return, and they wouldn't react kindly. The civilizations that had mocked Earth would feel the wrath of humanity's power, and the galaxy's arrogance would be shattered forever. With the warship now fully awake and soaring through space, there was no turning back. Humanity had just taken its first step in a battle that would change everything. The forgotten relic had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The ancient warship drifted through the void, its massive form glowing like a star as it sailed toward the vast unknown. Earth had never seen a force like this, its history filled with wars, battles, and strife. But none of that compared to the immense power that now surged through this ancient vessel. The galaxy was vast and filled with empires that had long forgotten Earth, but that was about to change. Dr. Samuel Drake stood at the helm, his eyes glued to the warship's control panel, watching as the ship's systems came online one by one. This was no ordinary vessel. It was far more than just a ship. It was an extension of Earth's forgotten legacy, an ancient war machine capable of changing the balance of power in the galaxy. The ship's enormous weapon systems hummed to life, as though the very essence of the vessel was waking from a long, dormant sleep. Dr. Drake's fingers hovered over the controls, knowing that with one wrong move, he could trigger a cataclysmic chain of events. He had never anticipated this. This ship was not just a relic, it was humanity's final answer to the threats of the stars. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the powerful alien empires that had long dominated the cosmos were unaware of the growing threat. They had long dismissed Earth as an insignificant, primitive world, no more than a speck among the stars. But the powerful systems of the ancient warship had already begun transmitting a signal, one that reached the ears of those who were always watching, always waiting. The galaxy's most powerful fleets were scattered across the stars, each empire proud and confident in its superiority. The Zinthar Empire, a militaristic civilization known for its ruthless conquests, received the signal first. Their sensors detected the energy surge from the warship as it powered up, and their fleet commanders immediately took notice. "What is this?" Commander Xartok growled, his sharp, alien eyes scanning the data feed. A primitive world like Earth couldn't possibly be capable of this kind of energy signature. This must be a mistake. But there was no mistaking the readings. The warship's energy levels were off the charts, and the signature matched no known technology in the galaxy. Sartok knew one thing for certain. If this ship belonged to Earth, they were no longer the weak, defenseless world they had once been. Something had changed. He wasted no time, sending out orders to the fleet. Prepare the fleet for immediate departure. We need to intercept that ship before it gets any closer to our territory. This is a threat we cannot ignore. Elsewhere, in the vast reaches of the galaxy, similar alarms were being raised across multiple star systems. The Narathians, a cunning race of spies and traitors, had also detected the mysterious energy surge. Their fleet leaders, too, were growing concerned. The Earth? The same insignificant world that was crushed under our thumb in the past. How can they wield such power? The Narathian general muttered, his sleek, reptilian form shivering with confusion. Send the elite strike force to investigate. We need to know who's behind this. But it wasn't just the alien empires who were taking notice of Earth's awakening. The ancient network of galactic observers, the enigmatic race known as the Va'ari, watched in silence from the edges of the galaxy. For millennia, the Va'ari had observed countless civilizations rise and fall, always remaining hidden in the shadows. But they too recognized the power now emanating from Earth. The Va'ari had long understood the ancient warship's significance. Their ancestors had once been the allies of the humans, and they knew the power that humanity had locked away. For years, the Va'ari had secretly monitored Earth, waiting for the moment when the humans would rediscover their lost strength. The warship was their legacy, and now it was awakened. The Va'ari were intrigued, but they knew one thing above all else. This ship could change the tide of the galaxy's balance forever. Back on Earth, Dr. Drake and his team were in full preparation mode. The warship was ready. Its systems were operating at full power. The time had come for humanity to take its stand. But Dr. Drake couldn't help but feel the weight of what they were about to do. The galaxy had mocked Earth. They had laughed at humanity's past, dismissed their relics, and thought them weak. But now, the entire galaxy would see what humanity was capable of. Prepare for launch, Dr. Drake ordered. We're heading into uncharted territory. There's no turning back now. The warship began to move, slowly at first, then faster as it accelerated into the depths of space. Its massive frame cut through the stars with terrifying precision. There was no place in the galaxy that was beyond its reach. The galaxy's response would not be long in coming. The alien fleets were already assembling, their ships racing toward Earth's new weapon. But humanity's warship, the relic of their past, had already begun its journey to change the future. The moment of reckoning was near. The galaxy would be forced to reckon with humanity's might. As Dr. Drake gazed out at the stars, he knew the warship was not just a weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance. The galaxy might have laughed at their relics, but it would be humanity that would have the last laugh. The time for mockery was over. The ancient warship, now fully operational, cut through the void with terrifying precision. Its massive engines hummed steadily, pushing the ship toward its destination. Earth's relic had awoken, and its presence was about to send shockwaves across the galaxy. Dr. Samuel Drake and his crew watched with bated breath as the final adjustments were made. They were ready, but they were also aware of the gravity of what they were about to do. The ship's enormous weapon systems were operational, and its powerful shields glowed a faint blue against the darkness of space. It had been designed to strike fear into the hearts of the galaxy's most powerful fleets, and that's exactly what it would do. Humanity's response was no longer passive. They were about to show the galaxy just how dangerous they could be. Meanwhile, the alien fleets, from the Zinthar Empire to the Narathians, were in full motion, converging on Earth's position. Their fleets were massive, their warships bristling with weapons. But none of them had expected this, the ancient warship that was now heading straight for them. No one knew exactly what to expect, but they all shared the same thought. This human relic was no laughing matter. Commander Sartok, the ruthless leader of the Zinthar Empire, stood at the helm of his flagship, watching the displays. The signal had been detected. Earth's ancient warship had been activated, and now it was making its way toward their fleet. He gritted his teeth. Prepare for battle. We cannot allow this ship to reach Earth. Its power must be neutralized before it's too late. His command was swiftly obeyed. Zinthar battlecruisers moved into position, their weapons locked and ready, their shields braced for impact. Sartok had a plan, but even he couldn't deny the fear gnawing at him. The readings coming from the human ship were unlike anything he had ever encountered. This wasn't just another primitive ship. It was a force to be reckoned with. Hold your positions, Sartok ordered. Let's see what this relic can really do. And then, without warning, the first strike came. From Earth's warship, a massive beam of energy shot forth, tearing through the void like a comet. It was an incredible sight, a brilliant, blinding flash that left streaks of light in its wake. The Zinthar fleet barely had time to react as the beam collided with one of their battlecruisers, turning it to ash in an instant. The ship disintegrated in a fiery explosion, its debris scattering across space. Sartok's eyes widened as the battlecruiser was obliterated. What in the name of the gods? He muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. The alien fleet was in chaos. The sheer power of the human warship had taken them by surprise. They scrambled to reposition, to bring their weapons to bear, but the warship was already moving again, its massive engines propelling it toward the heart of their formation. Another blast of energy erupted from the ship, this time targeting a smaller, more agile vessel in the Narathian fleet. It barely had time to react before the beam struck, and in a flash, it was gone, leaving nothing but shattered debris in its wake. The Narathians had been caught off guard as well. In the wake of the destruction, the galaxy's most powerful fleets, once so confident in their superiority, were now on the defensive. The ancient warship from Earth wasn't just a relic. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, and the galaxy had underestimated its potential. Back on Earth, Dr. Drake and his team were watching the live feed of the battle. Every attack, every explosion, sent waves of adrenaline through their veins. This was no longer just a test. It was the beginning of humanity's stand against the galaxy's most powerful empires. "We're making a statement," Dr. Drake muttered under his breath, watching as the warship continued its relentless advance. "We're showing the galaxy that we are not to be underestimated." The warship's energy output was increasing with each passing moment, as if it were feeding off the chaos. The crew could see the results. The alien fleets were struggling to mount a defense, and the once confident commanders were now scrambling to regroup. But Dr. Drake knew that this was just the beginning. The true battle had yet to come. From the Narathian flagship, General Vec sent out a message to his fleet. "Retreat. Get out of range. We're dealing with something far beyond our capabilities." But it was too late. The warship was already upon them. Another pulse of energy slammed into a Zinthar destroyer, sending it spinning into the void, its weapon systems rendered useless by the blast. As the warship passed through the enemy fleet, more ships fell, one after another. No one had expected such overwhelming firepower. Earth's warship was a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The remaining alien ships started to retreat, but the warship was relentless. Its energy beams swept across the fleet, picking off vessels one by one. The once proud alien empires, which had mocked Earth for so long, were now learning the true power of humanity's hidden weapon. Back at Earth's command center, Dr. Drake watched in grim satisfaction. The warship was doing exactly what they had hoped for. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer to be ignored. The ancient relic had awakened, and it was rewriting the galaxy's rules of engagement. The first clash was over, and Earth had emerged victorious. The cosmic battlefield lay in silence after the chaos had unfolded. The remnants of the once powerful alien fleets drifted in the void, crippled and broken. The magnitude of the assault had left the galaxy stunned, and the fleet commanders, who had laughed at humanity's capabilities, were now left with the harsh reality of their miscalculation. The mighty Zinthar Empire's battlecruisers, once symbols of dominance, were now scattered debris in space. Narathian warships, once proud and unshakable, had been torn apart in mere moments by the overwhelming power of Earth's warship. The scale of the destruction was like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. Yet in the heart of Earth's command center, Dr. Samuel Drake and his team were focused on one thing. What came next? Can they even recover from this? Dr. Drake whispered, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief, as the warship's sensors relayed images of the damaged fleets. He leaned forward in his chair, studying the holographic displays. The alien empires were wounded, their pride shattered. But they weren't finished. "We've struck them hard," Dr. Drake said, turning to his team. "But this battle is far from over. They'll regroup, they'll retaliate. We can't afford to rest now." Across the galaxy, the alien leadership was already in crisis mode. The Galactic Council convened in a state of emergency, their once confident demeanor replaced by a growing sense of fear. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were scrambling to salvage what remained of their fleets. Commander Sartok of the Zinthar Empire was pacing in the war room of his flagship. His pride had been torn to shreds by the unexpected destruction of his fleet. The humans, whom he had dismissed as insignificant, had just decimated his most elite vessels in a matter of moments. How can this be? How did they possess such a weapon? Sartok demanded, slamming his fist on the table. "We believe their ancient relics were useless." His officers stood by, silent, unsure how to answer. The truth was too humiliating to voice aloud. The humans had something they didn't understand. Something far older, far more powerful than they could ever imagine. Meanwhile, on the Narathian flagship, General Vec was organizing the remnants of his forces. His mind raced as he tried to comprehend what had happened. The humans had a weapon that could turn the tide of any battle, a weapon that no one had expected. "They will regret this," Vec muttered, his voice cold. "We underestimated them. But we will not make that mistake again. Prepare the fleet to retaliate. We will crush these humans and their so-called warship." Across the galaxy, the news of Earth's victory spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through every empire and civilization. The word was clear. Humanity had shown its power, and it was no longer the helpless, insignificant species the galaxy had once considered it to be. Earth had a weapon, a relic of an ancient warship that could obliterate entire fleets, and the alien races were scrambling to understand how to respond. At the same time, Dr. Drake and his team were now facing a new terrifying realization. While Earth had gained a powerful advantage, the war was far from over. The alien fleets may have been momentarily weakened, but they were far from broken. The Zinthar, Narathian, and other forces were regrouping, making their way toward Earth, preparing for an inevitable confrontation. "We need to prepare for retaliation," Dr. Drake said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "The galaxy will not let this stand. They will come for us. But we must be ready. We cannot afford to give them another chance." The warship had been a success, but humanity now had a new mission: survival. The true scale of what was coming hadn't yet been fully realized. What had started as a mission to protect Earth had now transformed into something much bigger. Humanity was on the verge of something unimaginable. Its place in the galaxy had been forever altered, but so too had the galaxy itself. And that was the most dangerous part of all. Back at the command center, Dr. Drake reviewed the data streams and prepared the next phase of their strategy. Every movement, every decision, would have to be calculated with precision. The warship had been a message, but the true battle was about to begin. "Make no mistake," he said to his team, "the galaxy is watching, and we just made ourselves a target. The next phase will be even harder, but we will stand firm. Humanity's future is on the line. We will fight, and we will win, no matter the cost." Outside Earth's atmosphere, the warship stood poised, its weapons ready, awaiting the next chapter in a war that would define the future of the galaxy. The universe had seen humanity's power, but it had also seen its resolve. The battle for survival had begun, and there was no turning back. The tension continues to build in this chapter as the alien forces regroup after their catastrophic loss. Humanity's victory was significant, but the galaxy's reaction is just beginning. This part also sets the stage for a larger, more complicated war, one where the stakes have never been higher. The warships of the galaxy's most powerful empires had begun their journey toward Earth. It was only a matter of time before the remnants of the Zinthar and Nerathian fleets, along with their allies, regrouped and arrived at the planet. Their desperation was palpable. Humanity had humiliated them, shattered their forces with a weapon no one had seen before. And they would not let that stand. On Earth, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Dr. Samuel Drake and his team stood in the command center, monitoring every incoming signal. The victory against the alien fleets had been monumental, but it was fleeting. Now, the true test would come. Could humanity defend itself against the galaxy's wrath? "We've detected their approach," Lieutenant Sarah Miller said, her voice steady, but tinged with concern as she studied the holographic map of the galaxy. The enemy fleets were on their way, massive, vengeful, and determined. "We need to prepare. They will come for us with everything they've got," Dr. Drake replied. "But we're not like we were before. We're ready for this." Behind them, Earth's warship loomed over the command center, a silent reminder of humanity's strength. But the warship alone wouldn't win this battle. Humanity would need every advantage it could get. "We've updated our defenses," Sarah said, tapping a few buttons on her console. "We've reactivated the defensive grid around Earth, and the warship is ready. But we need more. We need to keep them off balance." Dr. Drake nodded. "We'll use every resource we have. We're not just defending a planet anymore. We're defending humanity's place in the galaxy." Just as he spoke, the first wave of enemy ships entered Earth's solar system, a fleet of enormous warships led by the Zinthar Empire's flagship, the Harbinger. The fleet was flanked by Nerathian dreadnoughts, sleek and deadly, their weapons primed for retaliation. But this time, the aliens were met with a different kind of resistance. The human warship, Excalibur, powered up its weapons systems, its massive cannons now glowing with a terrible energy. The fleet's artificial intelligence had been adapted to predict enemy movements and counter them with precision. Initiating first strike, Lieutenant Miller announced. All weapons primed. The Excalibur fired its first salvo, and the sky erupted in a flash of light. The alien ships were caught off guard as their shields were breached almost immediately, but the retaliating forces of the Zinthar and Nerathian fleets quickly regrouped, and they began their counterattack. "We're not finished yet," Commander Sartok of the Zinthar Empire grunted as he watched the battle unfold. "Earth thinks they've won, but this is only the beginning." His fleet had been damaged, but their anger and pride were their strongest weapons now. The alien empires had underestimated humanity, but that would not happen again. Sartok's voice rang out over the comms as he ordered a coordinated strike on the human warship. "Deploy the EMP bursts," he ordered, a cruel smile on his face. "Let's see how their precious warship holds up." The enemy fleets unleashed a powerful electromagnetic pulse that pulsed across the battlefield, knocking out communication systems and scrambling sensor readings. For a moment, it seemed as though humanity's advantage might falter. But Excalibur's crew was prepared for this. "EMP pulses detected." Dr. Drake's voice came over the comms, calm and controlled. "Initiate countermeasures. Shields at maximum." The warship's internal systems kicked into gear, and despite the chaos, the ship remained intact. Excalibur's cannons continued to fire, cutting through the alien ships with deadly precision. Yet, humanity's victory was still far from assured. The alien fleets had the numbers, and the battle raged on in the cold emptiness of space. "We can't hold them off forever," Lieutenant Miller said, her hands flying over the console, adjusting the targeting system. "We need more ships, more firepower." Dr. Drake clenched his jaw. "We'll make do with what we have. But we won't give up. Not now, not ever." Meanwhile, on the alien flagship, General Vec of the Narathian Empire watched the battle unfold with narrowed eyes. His forces had suffered heavy casualties, but Earth's defense was not invincible. They had underestimated the strength of their warship, but they could still overwhelm it with their sheer numbers. "We need to press harder," General Vec growled. "Crush their fleet. Show them that no one defies the galaxy's true power." The battle grew more intense with each passing minute, but despite the overwhelming forces of the enemy, humanity stood its ground. Excalibur fired relentless barrages, striking fear into the hearts of the alien invaders. Yet the outcome of the battle was still uncertain. Dr. Drake and his team continued to monitor the chaos from the command center, watching as the battle raged on. The warship had proven its power, but humanity had yet to prove that it could hold off a galaxy that was now intent on destroying it. "We need a game changer," Dr. Drake muttered. "Something to turn the tide in our favor." He turned to Lieutenant Miller, who was already calculating their next move. The fate of Earth and the entire human race hung in the balance. Would humanity's hidden strength be enough to defeat the forces that sought its destruction? The answer, as always, would come in the form of action, and it would determine whether humanity would rise to become the dominant force in the galaxy or be erased from existence. In this chapter, the stakes are higher than ever, and the alien forces are relentless in their pursuit of humanity. As Earth fights for survival, the tension continues to build toward the ultimate showdown. The next part will bring humanity closer to the brink, where every decision could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. The skies above Earth were ablaze with the flashes of space battles as the alien fleets pressed on. The fight had dragged on for hours, and humanity was beginning to feel the strain. The warship Excalibur, despite its might, was not invincible. It had taken hits, its engines had sustained damage, and its shields, once near impenetrable, were starting to flicker. But still it held, and its crew fought with a resolve that was unmatched. "Damage report," Lieutenant Miller shouted over the comms, her voice sharp and focused. Her fingers flew over the console, trying to control the chaos unfolding around her. "Shields are holding, but only at 15%. A voice crackled from the engineering bay. "We've lost 2 of our main guns, and the propulsion system is failing." "We can't keep this up for long," Dr. Drake said, stepping forward to take control of the situation. "But we're not done yet." Across the battlefield, the alien fleet was still regrouping, but their frustration was palpable. They had thrown everything at Earth, yet the human warship was not falling. Even worse, Excalibur was still a formidable force, cutting through their ships with laser precision. It was no longer just a warship. It had become a symbol of humanity's defiance. The aliens were beginning to realize that this was no ordinary battle. On the bridge of the Zinthar flagship Harbinger, Commander Xartok bellowed, "This is absurd. We've crushed entire civilizations. Why won't they fall?" The Narathian dreadnoughts swarmed around the human warship like vultures, launching wave after wave of attacks, but each strike was met with the relentless retaliation of Excalibur. "Humanity's resilience. It's not what we anticipated," General Vec growled, pacing back and forth in his control room. Yet, as the hours passed, the tide of the battle began to shift. The alien forces, though powerful, were beginning to tire. The Excalibur had done more than just hold its ground. It had struck fear into the hearts of the invaders. But Earth's resources were dwindling. Dr. Drake's eyes were fixed on the battlefield map, and he understood the gravity of the situation. Their defenses were failing. A direct counterattack was out of the question. They needed a new strategy, something radical, something that would turn the tide of the battle once and for all. "We need to bring the fight to them," he said, turning to Lieutenant Miller. "Initiate the final protocol. All systems. Now." Miller's eyes widened in realization. "You mean the last option?" Dr. Drake nodded grimly. "It's time." The Excalibur had a hidden weapon, a devastating feature that had never been tested in battle. It was the final card, the last resort. A weapon so powerful that its activation could very well end the war, but at the cost of everything the ship had. Lieutenant Miller hesitated for a split second, but then, with a deep breath, she activated the sequence. Final protocol initiated. Outside, the Excalibur's engines began to hum with an eerie power. The ship's systems realigned, and the space around it seemed to warp. The air crackled with energy as the ship prepared to unleash its most devastating weapon, a supermassive energy pulse capable of obliterating entire fleets in an instant. The weapon, however, would drain the Excalibur of all its remaining energy. It was a one-time use, and once activated, there would be no coming back. All hands brace for impact, Dr. Drake commanded. The pulse was unleashed, and the universe seemed to hold its breath. A blinding light erupted from Excalibur, brighter than 1,000 stars, as it pierced the alien fleet like a hammer through glass. The shockwave of destruction spread across space, obliterating entire formations of ships. Alien warships, once proud and imposing, were reduced to nothing but debris and ashes. For a moment, the battlefield was silent. Then the full extent of the destruction became clear. The alien fleets had been decimated. The once mighty armada of the Zinthar and Narathian empires had been shattered, reduced to broken fragments drifting in the void. It was the kind of destruction the galaxy had never seen. The alien commanders who had once mocked humanity were now faced with the reality that they had underestimated a force beyond their understanding. The Excalibur's final strike had decimated them. Dr. Drake's voice came over the comms, hoarse but filled with triumph. Victory is ours. But even in the face of triumph, there was no joy. The battle had cost them dearly. The Excalibur had been damaged beyond repair, its systems drained, and its crew exhausted. Yet as Earth's defenders watched the remnants of the alien fleets float aimlessly through space, they knew one thing: humanity had proven itself. The galaxy had laughed at their relics. They had mocked humanity's strength, but now they would learn the price of that mistake. Earth's might had been hidden for centuries, but it had emerged when the galaxy needed it most. And the galaxy would never forget. In this final chapter, the fate of Earth and its defenders is sealed with one final act of defiance and power. Humanity has proved that it is no longer just a relic of the past. It is a force to be reckoned with. The battle is over, but the war for Earth's future has only just begun.